one of the sort of big academic lenses through which a lot of people who are studying folk horror think about the genre is called hauntology. And I think it's important to bring this in. So hauntology was initially spoken about by Jacques Derrida, and he said that hauntology, he was thinking about it in relationship to Marxism. So he said that in the collapse of the Soviet Union and with the fall of the Berlin Wall, we have seen the end of sort of Marxism, but it continues to haunt society, and it's ever present. Like it's not going to go away as a concept or an idea, even though it's not an active political state at the time that he was writing. So he's talking about this in relation to Marxism. But people who are studying folk horror are thinking about this in relation to the way that the past continues to haunt the present. And the way that the past is almost like a ghost. It's a spectre, so Derrida uses the word spectre, that is forever always in the present. We can't escape our histories. And some of those histories are sort of real histories, and some of them are imagined pasts as well. And I think it's these imagined pasts that really shape how we're thinking about folk horror today, and the way that folk horror gives us an insight into our kind of collective unconscious, I suppose. Because at least within the British tradition of folk horror, there is so much looking back to this sort of idealized, rural, kind of perfect society that never existed. It was never a thing. There were always troubles. People were always having sort of, difficult times. But that, moves into the present. So we see it in folk horror, but we also see it all the time in contemporary politics as well. And it was something that was happening a lot during the Brexit referendum in the UK. So one of the things that we would see is people talking about the brilliant British past where this happened and this happened. And as a historian, I'd be there going, well, it didn't quite like that. But why have we got this spectre of this imagined past coming into the present and shaping the way we're thinking about political discourse today? And this is what folk horror is doing again and again. So folk horror is thinking about these imagined pasts, these folk practices, witches, thinking about all of these kinds of themes that perhaps never existed in the form that they're appearing in folk horror, but they're using them as a way to think about our current kind of ways of living and being. My favourite example of this is Scarfolk. I don't know if anybody in the chat is familiar with Scarfolk, but it is a really interesting kind of concept. So it started off as a blog and a load of websites, and then a few sort of books have been published about Scarfolk, including like an annual that's meant to look like it was produced in the 1960s or 70s, but is actually commenting on present day isolationism, racism's attitudes towards sort of gender and relationships as well. So I think, yeah, that is a really nice example of that kind of hauntological perspective.
Find out more on advire.life.